My name's Zach. I'm chairman of the space. First off, thank you all for being here. What an amazing turnout. I think this is our second or third event. Please, round of applause for you all. It's amazing. So what is the space? The space is a nonprofit, member-run Bitcoin hub here in Denver. We've been open about a month. Show of hands, how many people this is their first time in the space? Wow. What do you think? So as I said, it's a nonprofit, member-run Bitcoin hub. We didn't have investors. This is all put together by our local Denver community, by our 55 founding members. Yes. In order to be a founding member, you had to give us money monthly and get nothing in return. What a deal. 55 people did that. Incredible. But not just 55 people. 4 companies in our industry also did that and bet on us, bet on our community, that the space was going to be the space to be. Those 4 sponsors are Compass Mining, Casa, Unchained, and Fetty. Want to give a round of applause for them too. We've got some big heavyweights here. We've got we're punching above our weight class here in Denver. Believe it or not, we've only been open, like I said, 1 month. If you would have seen, we'll have to do some before and after pictures. This whole room looked nothing like this. This was a solid white wall. This TV wasn't here. It's amazing how many people have volunteered their time. We didn't pay anyone. Everyone has been volunteered because they care about this community, they care about Bitcoin, and they care about the movement that we're all here to see succeed. That's why we're also starting a monthly mining meetup. One of the most misunderstood parts of Bitcoin is Bitcoin mining. Wouldn't you agree? That's why we've got a monthly recurring meetup from this point forward to make sure that that's different. And we're so happy to have Compass be a part of this and help us grow our community and grow the Bitcoin mining knowledge base. So thank you all for helping be involved. Couple quick other announcements. So we've got 66 members today, and we have plenty more members that we can still go. So if you're interested in being a member, just raise your hand so somebody can come find you on the board. Okay, so we've got a few people there. So if you want to be a member, we've got 2 tiers, social and co-working. Social's $150 a month, co-working's $300 a month. So they're both pretty accessible price points. And the only reason that's true is because of our sponsors that helped us run this so we could make it an affordable place for our community to actually be a part of. So if you want to be a member, let us know. But if you don't and you just want to be a part of our public events, come be a part of them. We're going to be having so many of events like this monthly. Denver Bit Devs, the mining meetup. We're going to be having a monthly educational Bitcoin basics workshop that we're going to start in January. So your new coiner friends that are going to get orange pilled at 250,000, bring them in, and we'll make sure they don't get, they don't go astray. And we also, like I said, we're a nonprofit. If you want to support us outside of membership, just go to donate.denver.space, and you can do that. And I think Wyatt now is a fellow member of our board is going to introduce Compass and the importance of what we're doing here tonight on the meetup.
Yeah, like Zach said, very appreciative of all you guys coming, especially to support one of our founding sponsors, Compass. So they're too humble to say it, so I'm going to stand up here and brag about them for a little bit. But a funny story about Compass that a lot of people don't know is, so it's like, where's Tyler? Tyler's running AV, but it's his line, or it's like, and Zach touched on it. It's like we were selling vaporware in the beginning. It's like trying to collect dues, build a treasury, and, a building was always our goal, right? Someplace where we could get the Bitcoin community in a single spot. And Compass was moving up in the world. They were getting a bigger, better warehouse. So we actually went and toured one of their old warehouses. Is like, oh, maybe this is a possibility we can get. as a building. And I mean, talk about a shithole. I mean, it was like metal building, inch of dirt on the ground, and we're like, thanks, guys. But in all seriousness, they've been with us from almost the very beginning, and I have to just give them a tremendous shout out for being patient and letting us, fully flesh this out so we could reward them with this beautiful building we're in now. And so, Curtis, this is really his brainchild here. This is a man who's dedicated a lot of his life and professional career to Bitcoin and traveling across the country to different types of Bitcoin meetups, whether it's an energy focus in Houston or maybe like paper straws in San Francisco. He wanted to make a technical mining meetup, and he thought the space was the place to do it. So we're really honored that they chose a space and stayed patient with us for months and months. So we got our feet underneath us, and so just a special shout out. If we could give Compass a round of applause here, appreciate it. And with that being said, like Zach mentioned, I'm their Chief Marketing Officer. If you have a Bitcoin company or you know somebody with a Bitcoin company that is interested in getting involved with the space, please come find me and let me know. We'd love to get you guys involved. And with that being said, I'll hand it over to Curtis here and the Compass Mining team.
Thank you. Would you help mic up the next two speakers? So you've got one in your hand and the other one's here. Housekeeping, okay? The microphones that we have here for the recording, there's no audio going on inside of this room. So if we hear talking in the back or from the other room, we'll say, hey, quiet down, just that way we can hear. We'll also hop right into this. I have a tremendous amount of passion over being here tonight. We already started with some nice comments. What the space has built is phenomenal. We made nice words about Compass and the other businesses that supported it. Without local Bitcoin community, you have nothing, and they've built something amazing. It's our true pleasure to be a part of that. Okay? When we have this meetup logo, we don't have the Compass logo on it. We actually want this technical mining operations meetup to be a gift to the Bitcoin mining community. It's needed. There's BitDevs, there's Bitcoin Freedom, there's lots of places that you can connect in Bitcoin, but there's few places that you can get a deep dive into technical mining operations until now. So here we are. Hopefully my mouse works or my button clicker works. If not, we'll call Tim. It was working, I'm sorry. So I would like to be able to see this screen. Tim, would you help me be able to see this screen? So, darn it. We're going to start with a couple things brief. We've already gone through the announcements. One of the things that I'd like to do to highlight at every month. So can I see it here also? No, I can't. All right, I'm out. All right. That's funny. That's funny. I want to go into, look at this. Yeah. It needs to be mirrored. There you go. Thank you. So, hey. All right, so I'll be brief before I bring up our speakers. What I wanted to do was highlight a few job openings that are happening in the Bitcoin mining industry. Today, Compass Mining doesn't have any openings. We've had some tremendous fillings. We've filled some roles. We've got a good amount of our team in the room tonight. Expect in the future, if we've got a Bitcoin mining operations job, ours is going to be up there. If you have a Bitcoin mining operations job and you want yours listed, just let me know. But I picked three, and I'll run through them pretty fast. If you guys haven't seen that Taras is hiring for a strategic projects coordinator, you should recognize that Taras is one of the giants in the industry, and the opportunity to meet with him or even interview or to be considered for the position, I think would be valuable. Riot is hiring in Rockdale, Texas for a minor maintenance technician. This is a very standard job. If you can learn to be a minor maintenance technician, the future is yours in Bitcoin mining, and the jobs are open. And the last one before I introduce our speakers and hopefully calm down a little. I got a little excitement here, don't I, Joel? Yeah. The last one, Bitfarms. Bitfarms is a massive publicly traded Bitcoin mining company. Okay, so if you want a chance to get started in a career, you want to work for a public company, but you don't want to go to work for Deloitte or your options are, you can get started with publicly traded companies as a Bitcoin miner mining technician. So 3 good job openings. Let's move on to the first topic.
Quick question, if we had jobs that we wanted to get on there in the future, how do we surface those?
You know, I didn't include my information on this slide. I think it would be easy just to say, for now, I'm in charge, Curtis at compassmining.io. Happy to give you my card. Let me get better at having my information or a QR code, okay? So, technical mining operations. You cannot learn to be a Bitcoin miner all at once. It is a master class that could take a lifetime. So how do you get a master class and not take a lifetime? Bite-sized chunks, bring in experts for incredibly meaningful conversations, a real deep dive, and then you let it be, you come back next time. So that's what we have tonight, is a really deep conversation into air filtration and air management inside of mining operations. Our first 2 speakers, or I'll ask them to come up. Our first 2 speakers are Shannon Squires and Keith Jordan. You guys can come on up. Shannon is, please. Hey, Shannon is Chief Mining Officer for Compass Mining. He lives here in the Denver area. His wife, Laura, is catering. Okay, so if you haven't seen that, what's the catering company called again?
Silver Spoons.
Silver Spoons. Shannon is a close friend, coaches his children's athletics teams, is a hardcore Bitcoin miner with a lot of knowledge, and lives right here in your community. Keith is a local business owner. He is president and founder of Colorado Air Filter. Keith is an expert in air filtration and quickly discovered the Bitcoin mining industry and the opportunity to serve it with air infiltration. My desire tonight is to facilitate a conversation between these 2 guys. So what I'm gonna do is pull some samples up and ask them to make some self-introductions and start the conversation with what are we here to talk about tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome my guest?
Curtis is a far better speaker than I am, so you guys just have to bear with me through the rest of this, and just appreciate everybody for coming out. I don't spend a whole lot of time, against Curtis's better efforts, going out to meetups and doing that type of stuff, but it's exciting to have like a technical meetup, actually discuss things that are important in the Bitcoin mining world, the stuff that we deal with day to day, and kind of dive in. So when Curtis originally came up with this idea and we were talking about it back in the day, it was very much the people that I work with day to day that are running Bitcoin mining farms, what are the things that they actually want to come learn about? What are the things that is going to get someone who's running a mining farm in Texas to fly to Colorado and learn more about it? What are those things that's going to get someone who's running a mining farm in Minnesota or Washington or whatever to send their, heads of tech, their heads of site operation or their site operators out here to just gain more knowledge in that space? So that's kind of was a while back when we discussed it, and it's coming to fruition is pretty exciting, and excited to sit here and do this. So
following up on that, who is not from Colorado in here? Wow. So all of you people flew in here to talk about air filtration. Yeah. We got to get some more excitement in your lives. So Keith Jordan, Colorado Air Filter, largest locally owned HVAC air filter distribution here in Denver. Cover Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, and thanks to Bitcoin, the entire United States. But my business is primarily universities, hospitals, office buildings, all the high-rise buildings you see around here. Bitcoin's about, or miners is about 1% of my business right now, but it's growing, and I like that. And the community is growing. There's a couple of guys in here that I know from 3 years ago, and now, man, it's like quadrupled, maybe tenfold. This is fantastic. So thank you for being here.
We did not do a good job of like pre-setting up questions. These are both experts, and I think if I tee up a conversation, they'll be able to talk meaningfully. So one of the things that I had thought of is, Shannon, could you share with Keith a couple of horror stories that you've seen? And then Keith, you talk about solutions or what you've seen like that. Horror stories.
Well, I think this gentleman lovely pointed out the dirt on the floor at a warehouse he went and visited. So most of you guys know Compass Mining kind of cut its teeth in this industry as an aggregator. So being able to find places in which to put Bitcoin miners that were more cost effective than someone doing it at home. So you could essentially place a miner with Compass, even if it was a minimum order quantity 1. We were aggregating large amounts of that together, 10 megawatts, 60 megawatts. I think at our peak, it was like 165 megawatts across 21 facilities in 2 countries. And some of those facilities that we ended up partnering with back in the day may have not understood air filtration and the importance of having, somewhat clean air running through a computer. And so whether it was our facilities that were partners that we're moving into, or various ones, or just the massive amount of work we get in our repair business due to people with the same issue, is that there's a very large lack of quality air filtration. People stand up, you guys have seen all the container structures. These look like arcade containers, so they actually have wonderful filtration. They have like these 4-inch style MERV 8 filters on the outside of there, so they do wonderful. There's other facilities that don't put that in there or anything at all, and you have these giant fans, whether that's just all the fans from the miners or the intake or exhaust fans of the facility, that just pull whatever's outside into the facility. And the only thing that's really going to kill these computers is too much heat. And so the problem is that dust collects within the heat sinks or, on the PCB boards that keeps heat in the miner. And then that's what eventually causes something to fail or break in it. So otherwise the miners would run forever like your home computer. If you had a computer from the 90s, it probably still turns on and runs. It just feels awful because it's so outdated. And so some of the horror stories would probably include projects in which we were cleaning miners from facilities that were near like metal manufacturing shops. And so if there was stuff in the air out of the metal manufacturing shop, it would get sucked into someone's farm. And then there would be a whole bunch of computers to fix. So
do you guys agree that we got to get Shannon out more? Like that was a long answer. I'm like horror stories, like metal shavings. Like all right, no.
They just suck it in, and then we have the repair center here in Denver, so we get all these miners, ship them to Denver, and then that's what ends up on the floor that makes that place completely dirty and have to be cleaned out all the time.
Keith, how your climate?
I have a question before. I want to preface this. So the miners getting dirty causes them to overheat. Doesn't lack of airflow cause them to overheat too?
Correct.
So when that comes into my domain, which is when we're filtering air, there's 2 things I got to worry about. Is what size particle do I need to capture? And then how long can I run this filter before you get lack of airflow? And you need to change or clean those filters. And so that's what I'm looking for. Whenever I'm talking to miners, I haven't visited but a few sites yet, but when I'm talking to them, I've got a list of questions that I run down because I need to know what I'm dealing with. Because in the filter world, there's multiple filters that will overlap and do the same thing, and I've got to present them with multiple choices, which is best for their application or geography. What are they dealing with, snow or rain, stuff like that. So to tie this into horror stories, I've seen a couple things go the wrong direction. So some guys will go all out, maybe they got new money, and I want the best filtration there is, but they don't have fan capacity when those filters get dirty. And then their miners overheat, and they rip those expensive filters they just spent tens of thousands of dollars on, put them to the side, put this roll media on there, barely covers it, and has gaps around the sides. underneath it. And so what you need to understand with airflow is it's like water. It takes the path of least resistance. So if you have a gap in there, you may have a good rated filter, but it's going around it, your filter's crap at that point. So I've seen lots of guys will start good, and then I don't know what happens, but they go backwards. So that's a bad thing.
Something you mentioned there is the airflow on path of least resistance, because that's another thing that ends up being a tragedy case in a lot of mining farms. So outside of just the air being, pulled through a building, mining farms are pretty straightforward. There's intake on one side, exhaust on the other. You pull air through it to keep the computers cool. But one of the things that happen in the middle is making sure that the miners are actually drawing that air from the outside. So in situations in which the miner's trying to take that path of least resistance, it's just going to pull air around itself. So if you're dealing with clogged filters or fans that can't have a high enough static pressure to pull everything through that, then your miner just sits there and heats the air up, sucks it back around itself, and pulls it into the other side. So a lot of our mining farm technicians spend a ton of time just working on, shielding the hot aisle from the cold aisle to keep that from happening. And a lot of that can actually be prevented by just making sure that you actually size your fans appropriate to your filters. And then if you're using different types of rolled media, making sure you're cleaning them appropriately. If you're using the metal washable filters, making sure you're actually taking those out and cleaning them like you're supposed to.
Gentlemen, I think you referenced the metal washable filter in conjunction with the RK containers shown on the wall. And if I remember right, that Keith has become the primary filter supplier for RK container purchasers. If you guys don't know it, question in the back?
Oh, I can wait till you're
Sure. We do hope to take questions, so I think we're going to do it at the end. But if it was an interjection, you're
Well, I'll tell you what, just before we get too far down, I only know enough about your industry to be dangerous, but I think this is a safe space. And what I'm dying to know is, many years ago, I saw people kind of wading into the waters of immersion cooling, and I know there's a reason. I don't know what the cost benefit was, but immersion cooling was expected by some to kind of displace the whole air cooling paradigm. I'm assuming it's just not cost effective relative to good air filtration.
I got a whole world to talk about that.
Exactly.
We'll save that. We'll touch on alternative cooling at the end. I'm the largest anti-immersion person in the industry. So, yeah. No, I do. So it's great.
Guys, I just say repeat questions in the mics, the recording catches it.
Yeah, thank you. That was good. That was good. Okay, so continuing on. For the folks, this is a Denver-based community. You might not know it, but the manufacturer of these containers, RK Mission Critical, is Denver-based. They are one of the largest and most reputable container manufacturers in the Bitcoin mining industry, and they're right here locally, and a local business owner is building air filters that he's selling into them. I think that's pretty phenomenal. I also think it's phenomenal that Compass has real history designing this container. We've deployed into some rough situations, and RK was able to listen to us for our guidance on how do we make this better? Because this is so widely distributed and used in the industry, and because you both are so knowledgeable, could you talk even for 5 minutes about filtering an RK container? Is this custom made? Is it a special size? If Shannon comes to you, Keith, and says, hey, do you have to ask him special questions where he's deploying? How do I filter an RK container?
So I can answer that.
No, go. I was going to say any impact Compass had on RK was probably Neil's fault, and I don't know where he's sitting, but
yeah. So RK containers are a special breed. What we found over the last 3 years that I've dealt with them is, like I said, I've got multiple filters I can sell into a miner, but their container is so robust and can pull enough air that we have specifically designed with one of my vendors this washable filter, so galvanized metal frame, MERV 8 media, encapsulated into 2 layers of metal. So this thing is a...
Can you hold it up?
Yep.
I can
So
hold
it's
it while
a
you're talking.
multiple year-long filter that is washable, MERV 8 rated. And what's good about it is that It's sustainable. You only have to wash it out with water. You don't have to take a paper plate, throw them in the garbage, and then, well, actually, so you don't have to take a paper plate and throw it in the garbage, but paper plates will load up with rain or snow in a heartbeat. And if you're not on site there, you're in trouble. These guys can take snow, can take rain, no problem at all, 100% moisture resistant. So it works very well in these harsher climates. Texas, where there's heavy dust storms that will pop up in a heartbeat. Up north Minnesota, Dakotas, where snowstorms will hit, perfectly fine to be left alone up there. And then when you can get to them, you can clean them out and wash them out. However, the one downfall of them is that because they're so robust, they will load up and their pressure drop or the resistance of airflow through the filter can get on the high side in time or in a different time until you can get to clean it. And so you have to have robust fans to be able to compensate for that. If you're just using the minors as your fan, that's not the filter for you. And so yeah, these are specially designed for them. We've got all the RK containers are 24 by 24 by 4 slots, but we make these undersized so that they slide right in there.
Keith, how difficult is it to get a miner to communicate honestly and openly with you about all of those operational constraints so that you can build them the right system? I think it probably takes iterations and trust.
When I get referrals, the trust is built right there. So I don't have to worry about it. If I'm meeting them at a trade show, different stories. Some guys are a little more protective than others. But we're multi-years into this industry, so people are more open about it. The scammers are not as prevalent. So years ago, I used to sell into the cannabis space. And early on into that space, people wouldn't admit. They go, I'm into horticulture. So can you help me with that? And I'm like, come on, tell me what you're doing. It's not my first time doing this. So it's not that bad. People are really open with sharing where their location is, how many containers, what's going on in that space. Do they deal with snow pine needles? Do they deal with corn? What's going on? So it's pretty open at this point.
Shannon, I watched you retrofit with air filtration the largest building I've ever been in and the nastiest building I've ever been in. So this is a custom-built, beautiful container where Keith can make a filter in a factory that slides right in. How do you take a dirty old building and decide we can filter this? Talk to the audience. They want to know, how do you filter a Bitcoin mine in a ratty old building?
So there is a trend of Bitcoin miners finding abandoned buildings that used to be like steel mills or paper mills or something like that and converting them because they already have power there, transformers and all that fun stuff. The part they don't understand is that it's a bit more complicated than that, and essentially it probably would have been easier just to tear the thing down and start from scratch. Essentially, you have to open up all of the walls from the intake side and exhaust side. Generally, primarily steel buildings. Some of these have been brick. Once those walls are completely open, then you get a lovely guy to go through and frame it all out with new aluminum or steel in order to hold filters in there. Whether that's going to be, a 4-inch, a 1-inch, or a 2-inch metal filter. We do use rolled media in those places with these Ziploc systems. And so if we're filtering a large wall that's 35 foot tall by 50 feet wide, something like that, build a frame to support the Ziploc systems and then be able to put in filter media. So you can get this in different MERV ratings. Generally, we shoot for MERV 8s and then make sure we have the exhaust fan handling to be able to pull through it. Difference is these ones, I don't actually know how you're supposed to clean these. You might tell me. We just load these up on a trailer, take them to a car wash and clean them.
Perfect. That's perfect.
And then we take them back and put them back in. Whereas these ones, like you said, when they're done, we just roll them up in a big pile. They go in the dumpster. They go somewhere else. We string up some new. So we're constantly, depending on the seasons and where these are located, if they're next to a farm that's, tilling the soil or harvesting, they get filled up really fast. We'll actually use the filter media like this in addition to some of these if we know it's going to be a dusty part of the season. Just to be able to help that. Or if we know we're in somewhere like Minnesota and we have these crazy, awesome fans that are in the arcade containers who can magically pull snow through a MERV 8 filter. And then you just throw filter media on the inside to actually add to that too. Experience that?
A lot of painful things, but giving me flashbacks. But for everyone here, could you briefly explain for us what MERV ratings are? And then can you explain a little bit
Sure.
about how you as operators think about now is the time to we want to be running 24/7. So how do you, when you're looking at your farm, decide like, this is the time, this is not the time, this is when we do this work?
The question for the recording was understanding MERV rating and then guidance to miners about when to replace.
So the MERV rating is a standard by the HVAC industry where filters are tested on the size of the particle and percentage of that particle size that they can capture. So right now, because most filters are for the protection of occupants, the rating kind of stops at MERV 8. It doesn't really go below that. We can guess on like this media is about a 6 or a 7. But we don't, the testing agencies really don't like to test anything lower than that because there's no market in that on the grand scheme of things. So MERV 8 to a MERV 16, and then we have a HEPA that is 17, 18, 19, 20 above that. And basically, when I'm dealing with universities or schools or hospitals or office buildings, there are certain facilities that have required MERV ratings. Hospitals have required MERV 13s. Schools during COVID had required MERV 13s. For some very high pharmaceutical facilities have HEPA ratings. And so basically what that tells me is what is the percentage of a certain size that of contaminant that they're capturing. For example, in a MERV 13, why we wanted to do a MERV 13 during COVID is because there's a particle size that is 2.5 microns. That particle is the most harmful to humans. It gets deep in your lungs, causes the most long-term health problems. A MERV 13 will capture 80% of the 2.5 micron range particle. Now, when you're dealing with mining facilities, there's no people in these miners. We're not worried about people.
No, that's not true.
They shouldn't be in there for 8 hours a day, though.
We got mining operations.
But in general,
warning.
in general,
we
we're
care
trying to,
about our mining operators. Okay.
in general, we're trying to protect equipment. And a MERV 8 will capture 80% of 3 to 10 micron. And that is about 10 micron is about the range, 10, 20 micron is what we're looking for at the lowest end for the mining community. You don't need to go lower than that because you're also pulling in outside air in a single pass situation. If you put a MERV 13 in there or higher, that filter will load so quick and be done in a week.
Shannon, how do you decide when it's time to change or clean filters?
So we use a very scientific approach. We monitor the miners' temperatures, and when the miners start to increase in temperature on average, it generally tells us that it's time to clean the filters. If they peak really quickly in temperature, it generally tells us a fan dies or someone put a piece of plywood in front of the intake or something like that. But that's kind of the easy way. There's a bit of nuance to that. So when you're dealing with facilities that are in colder regions, we'll actually let the filters get dirtier during the winter months on purpose to restrict airflow to allow some of that heat to be forced to recirculate within the mining farm from the hot aisle to the cold aisle to keep the miners at a certain temperature. So when mining farms get too cold, you actually end up with having some other issues, especially if you have to do a curtailment during that and the miners cool all the way down. If you try to kick them back up below, certain temperatures, the chips can actually crack. So we do some fun things like that, but for the most part, it's monitored based on the miner's functionality. Like our ultimate goal is to have the miner running. If they overheat, they're gonna break and not run. So once they start seeing higher temperatures than average, time to change your filters.
I want to add to that. So you mentioned something earlier that you had a MERV 8 filter and you put a roll behind it. So generally, when you're stacking filters, the only reason why you want to stack filters is if your initial filter is not working to your specifications, right? So when you stack a filter, you want to put a lower MERV rating in front of it. You want to go, say, a MERV 5, then a MERV 8, then a MERV 13, then a HEPA, if we're doing a hospital or pharmaceutical. In the mining community, you want to do a MERV 8 as your final, and you want to do a MERV 4, 5, 6 in front of that. And the reason is because a MERV 4, 5, 6 will capture the larger particles, and it'll get stuck in there, and then allow your second stage filter to capture smaller particles and not load up with the bigger particles, thus giving it longer life and more infrequent change outs or cleanings on there. So when you're looking at your environment and building out your mining facility, start with the initial stage, kind of get a feel for what's going on in that environment over the seasons, and then as you run into heavy dust storms or rain or snow, then you want to look at maybe adding a secondary stage in front of that final stage.
Guys, I think we got started a few minutes late, and then we were very excited. We had some extra announcements. It's the launch of the space. I'm really cognizant of people's time, so I don't want us to get into a point that we're going to run over. So a few more moments here, and then we're going to bring up yet a third guest, Johnny Larson. He's setting up over in the front. Johnny is an expert in providing electricity, power distribution to mining operations, and tonight he's going to share a little context around powering air filtration. So we've got a little bit more to go, and we're going to try to keep it snappy. We did want to open up for a few questions before we got to the end. I wanted to ask, I had a question teed up for Keith, but I can't tell. Did you have your hand up, Shannon?
I just wanted to get on my immersion rant whenever I get a chance, so we can ask Keith first.
After class is fine. I'm curious.
I was just wondering what the optimal temperature range is for mining.
The goal is to have the chip be at 80 degrees Celsius. That's what it tries to maintain. And so as far as like the mining farm, ambient temperature under 30 Celsius intake, so anything below that's going to be great. I don't remember. Eli, what temperature do these chips crack at? Is he in here?
He just walked out.
Oh, of course. Like he could tell you what temperatures the silicon cracks at when it gets too low. But generally speaking, you know, the intake temperatures is going to be ambient at a mining farm. So unless outside of evaporative cooling, immersion technology, hydro cooling, we generally don't do a whole lot to reduce the temperature of the intake air. At most places, when it gets hot, Bitcoin miners are curtailing because we are we need low cost power. Bitcoin's only 90K.
Just had a real quick question. As a layman, I would have thought that given the pre-existing server farms and data centers, that whole industry, I didn't realize that Bitcoin mining would kind of necessitate a novel. I would have thought there would be something off the shelf that was perfectly adequate for Bitcoin mines, but I get the impression that you guys had to bring something new to the market. I'm just trying to understand.
So a Bitcoin mining facility is probably like, I don't know, it's kind of like if you were at the worst data center in 1990, right? It's more like a chicken coop than it is a data center.
Yes.
Data centers that we use today in traditional compute, whether that's, the stuff Amazon's using for its cloud services, the new AI, HPC stuff, or any tier 1 through 4 data center, they are all filtering their air and being very specific about it. They're, climate controlled facilities, and everything, like their facilities cost orders of magnitude more to build. So in order to have air conditioning running all the time, that's using a lot of power. It's also a lot of infrastructure to build. Whereas with Bitcoin miners, we want to take every piece of electricity we can, put it through that miner because we want sats. We want you guys to be able to make transactions at any hour, any time, anywhere in the world at almost no fee. And so we want to make sure that happens. The only way that happens is a developing fee market over time, and then the Bitcoin miners being able to take care of their operations costs and power costs.
Bitcoin mining is incredibly complex, and if you look at that complex cycle to start at the beginning, like you could start at what is money, right? And then at any point, where do you start? We started with one topic tonight. What we want to build for you is an ongoing community where if you'll just continue to come back, they'll continue to be an interesting conversation and learn more. One more, that question that I had, I think it could be a fun one, and then let's transition. Keith, I'm catching you off spots that maybe you don't put too much thought into it. what's the last large customer? Obviously not the name, who the details of the last large customer you gave a bid to. Like, are these hundreds of units and it's tens of thousands of dollars? Is it tens of units and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars? What scale and price of a recent bid look like?
It's a very good question. It's actually both. So on a weekly basis, not a daily yet, but weekly basis, I'll get calls from guys who have one container or guys who have several hundred containers. So yeah, it'll range from a few $1,000s to hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point, yes.
Let's take one or two questions and then transition. There were a couple hands out there. I do think the topic of immersion is worthy of coming up as a later topic in a future month. So fine that we didn't go into it. For the purpose of these two gentlemen, any final questions from the audience?
Okay, I have a question I think is actually germane. I can tell you guys are sharp guys, okay? As just a layman on the street.
Could you say that one more time? It helps me.
You guys are sharp, so when I tell my money friends, like historically, look, Bitcoin mining is great, we need it, okay? But on a dollar for dollar basis, you're just better off going into the asset, right? So there's a reason you guys are mining rather than just buying Bitcoin. And I'm assuming you guys would like to see your industry grow, and I don't know if it's an inappropriate question to ask, but like, why mine? And I'm not like challenging you. I know there's a reason you're doing it, and I'm like really curious to hear about like why be mining.
So Tatum just asked us, restate the question for the mic, and therefore, maybe let's. I think what the question is I see the economics. I can buy Bitcoin versus I can mine Bitcoin. If it's not more economical, why are you doing all this crazy stuff?
So what's the phrase everybody used to use, like time preference? So if you have a short or long time preference and what's, yeah. So the deal is, if I look at I got into Bitcoin mining in 2017, right? There was a Bitcoin price of like $2,500. At that point in time, if I built a Bitcoin mining farm and I started with S19s, and then I upgraded to, I started with S9s or Dragon Mints or something, and upgraded to S19s over and just followed that normal market, and I ran that business for 5 years. My baseline cost of Bitcoin over those 5 years greatly exceeded your initial investment. So if we both put up $1 million, you bought $1 million of Bitcoin, I bought $1 million of mining farm, and I appropriately ran that business for 5 years, I came out a lot better.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that.
There are a lot of people who went bankrupt because they didn't run that business well. So it is a business.
This is a big one. So the president-elect has espoused it's just rhetoric about onshoring, like more Bitcoin mining, stuff like that. Would you characterize the sentiment in your industry as ambivalent to those statements, excited, don't care? Is there legislation?
You seen the price in the past week?
So I would say within the Bitcoin community, right? You got Bitcoin maxis, you got the guys on the other side that are Bitcoiners and crypto and everything in between. There's a very large amount of our community who doesn't care, right? Bitcoin doesn't care who you are. Anybody can use it at any time. That's the whole point of Bitcoin. So there's those group of people who literally could care less who our president is or how it affects Bitcoin. There's plenty of Bitcoin miners that would say if the U.S. banned Bitcoin mining, they'll just go to another country. We saw it get banned in China. They came to the U.S. Now they're back in China. So Bitcoin miners are going to go where they need to go because we're in this for a different ethos. That being said, obviously, Trump seemed to pump the price. If he fires Gary and frees Ross, I think there's going to be a lot of happy people.
Fire Gary gets applause here. I want us to transition. I'll say a couple things, so don't stand up yet. But Shannon, I'm going to ask you to stick up a little longer and continue the conversation with Johnny. So Keith, when you're done, if you would pass the mic on to Johnny. But before, please, were you wanting to
Well,
show
I was just going to
those?
say, Tatum, remind me, these are a better way to filter out snow than putting up that filter media. So thanks.
They're designed specifically for that.
Okay, so a benefit of having local experts. Think of RK who builds containers. Think of the Space who builds communities. Think of our guest, Keith, who builds air filters. There's real builders going on. The invitation for them to come through and participate, I personally hope, is a meaningful business opportunity that Keith is going to meet Bitcoin miners who didn't know that they were making air filters right here in Colorado. So I think that there's an opportunity when you have experts like this, you're going to see the same people again and again. Question in the back?
Well, question, comment. But first off, this is, to reiterate your point, this is super visionary, and I think maybe if people are new, they don't appreciate that this doesn't actually exist in the space right now. So to maybe kind of turn the question back on you, because this is cool. We have really maybe one or two what could be called like industry conferences, but nothing at this level of kind of sharing and actually getting in the room and talking about what the hell is going on, and especially not talking to our vendors who, in some cases, want to know who the weirdos are. They're showing up asking to buy however many rolls of these.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what do you see that we should keep our kind of ears perked up about in the coming months? What should we be cognizant of that we may not know of that you think who would be really served by kind of sitting in these chairs and sharing their knowledge with us?
You know, I don't want to get on a soapbox. I do want to give something, passionate though. It's the technical mining operation. So who's that person in your life that they're grinning ear to ear when they're talking about air filtration? Like that's the topic to bring forward. Okay. Let's.
Except me.
We're all grinning ear to ear right now.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Hey, that's so the audience. The audience might or might not know, but you're a giant. Those kind words mean so very much. Thank you. They also don't know, like, there's a guy standing up and back. We had the business development manager for for North America from Bitmain fly in to join our meetup tonight. Like, we've freaking done something. I mean, you
He's
guys
sold
are,
out of L9s, guys. He's already sold out.
He's already sold out. All right. Hey, let's. I brought audience. Would you please tell Keith thank you as a polite way of telling him to give the mic to Johnny? Would you? Okay, so if you remember, the context is detailed technical mining operations, give a deep dive on a topic, and then move on, have some socialization, some beers. So this first topic we thought would be about 40 minutes, but we wanted to bring an hour's worth of value. And if you guys haven't figured it out yet, is that air filtration fans take a tremendous amount of electricity. When you're a Bitcoin miner, you're talking megawatts, right? Your fans take a tremendous amount of your electricity. Well, it just so happens that right here in Denver, Colorado, is a Bitcoin mining power distribution expert. It's Johnny Larson, and Johnny has just joined us on stage. Johnny, would you feel like it's a chance to be on a soapbox? You've privately set up there. Would you share, would you talk about Moonshot before we get into the details of powering air filtration? We're probably got 15 minutes up here. Would you take several minutes and talk about Moonshot and what you do?
Totally. How's it going, guys? I'm Johnny. Started out in the crypto space in 2017. I think it's good to share my story because it helps tie into Moonshot. I actually started out working for Schneider Electric. I'm sure you guys have heard of the name, massive manufacturer. So I got my electrical background from those guys, okay? Right out of college, went through their sales development program. No idea what industry I was gonna get into at the time, right? Decided to get away from the big, massive corporation world. Decided to land at a company called Sunbelt Transformer. In 2017, I got a phone call from Chad Harris. He's the one that started Riot Blockchain. Chad's one of my best friends. He called me and said, I needed 200 megawatts of substations, pad mount transformers, medium voltage switchgear, and I literally was like, for what? He told me crypto money, okay? I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I don't even know, like I told my company this, and they're owned by a private equity group, and they're like, you have to fly down there and actually have this guy show you his bank account because we don't believe this at all. Literally did that, he showed me the money. And like, to this day, that's how the Rockdale, Texas site got started, because he called me, and that's how I got started in this space. Since then, I haven't looked back, and this has been the most amazing journey. I can't believe I'm sitting up on a stage and being able to speak in my hometown to all of you guys to learn more about this. But a part of that is also tied into how I got tied into Moonshot. So I was selling a lot of electrical equipment, transformers and all that stuff in the space. And at the same time, there was a lot of people coming into this space that were trying to buy electrical equipment really, really, really cheaply. There's no standards in other countries, so you were getting all this equipment from China. And I came from a background, again, from Schneider Electric, which is UL based. And UL stands for Underwriters Laboratory. And essentially what that means is there's a lab somewhere in the United States that we go and we test stuff to. And if you want to have insurance companies actually protect your sites, it has to have a UL label on it. Or else, if an actual fire or an electrical event happens on those sites and it's not UL listed, and that thing burns to the ground and kills a bunch of people, insurance companies are gonna be like, dude, sorry. That's why we have UL listings. And so I saw the crypto space bringing in all this non-UL listed equipment, and Moonshot at the time was like, has all these people that were building UL listed electrical equipment into the crypto space, and it needed more attention because what we're doing is powering things at hundreds of megawatts at a time, and people are skimping and cutting corners just because they want to increase their cost per kilowatt hour and all these types of things. But like, you have to slow down and remember that there's UL listings and all those things for a reason. And that's why Moonshot exists. And we're the ones to come into the crypto industry. And we're the only ones that come to the crypto industries that manufactures and makes electrical power distribution equipment, which, by the way, is like, you know, your house, you have a panel outside. That's what we do, but like for like 4,000 amps. Like, and then multiply that times like 50 for one building. Okay, so like massive amounts of power going into these and protecting it to make sure nobody blows up, okay? So that's why Moonshot exists, and that's what we do. And so a couple of things that are showcased on here. This is a 200 megawatt facility out in Texas. I actually went out 2 weeks ago and took these photos. This is at Ionic Digital site, okay? We did 200 megawatts of switchboards, panel boards, racks, PDUs, fan walls, all the VFDs, all of that was supplied through Moonshot, okay? And we helped the electrical engineers take an existing building, 4 buildings, and we helped them take what was already there, and we sized everything up and built it all. We started production in April. We delivered everything 2 weeks ago. So.
Are you getting saucy? Would you like the air filter that building?
Yeah.
You're
so
like, oh, baby.
This was a photo that we actually shared this was probably in June or July. This was building 3 or 4, but this is before all the miners. Do you have another one with all the?
You know, I don't. These are the two. So
that's a bummer.
You
but
sent
it's okay.
several.
Nonetheless, these are focused specifically on the air filtration side, and I'm going to go into talking about some of these things and what you're actually seeing here and the important pieces of those. But I feel like it was really important to touch on the subject of how important power distribution is and protecting and sizing things appropriately, because, man, like, people can easily die with electrical equipment when it's running at this massive amounts of power, and that's why we exist. And
Shannon, we buy an RK container, fans, PUEs already figured in. Okay, it's probably already got PDUs wired. We're in a building, we're building a building. At what point do you, as chief mining officer, start thinking about how do we power our air filtration, and what's 1 or 2 questions that you have to engage with Johnny about?
I have actually engaged with Moonshot on a handful of these questions. Generally, when we're doing like the most recent one was like a warehouse retrofit, because they're always the most complicated. And so we're generally trying to fit a large amount of power consumption into a small space. And so then we start designing the racks. And once we have the racks designed, understanding how deep they're gonna be, if we're doing like V-shaped racks or a straight wall, then we know what types of, how many miners are gonna be in there, what type of fans we need. It's at that point when I have to figure out, hey, can I take this switchgear that I'm going to be using to manage all these miners and pull a leg off to run these fans, or do I need a separate switchgear for that? What size of switchgear I need? Here's the fan spec.
Yep.
Actually, I was just having a conversation with you about the lovely Beltor motors because they just last forever and never die versus
That's what we used here.
Some-
These are
yeah.
all Beltor motors.
some of the stuff we've.
Johnny, what's
Yeah.
it like? Does a miner show up, and are they just do you have to steer them the way Keith has to steer them? Do you have to steer them to not forget to pay attention? What's your level of education?
Great question. And absolutely. So like the way that I start out with most people is just saying, all right, what real power do you have? Like, don't tell me what you're gonna have in here when a substation comes on. Like, what do you have right now? Okay. And then as soon as we start from there, then we start to like break it down. Be like, all right, are you coming from the meter? Okay, are you coming from the meter, or do you have to like step from the substation and come down, right? And then you eventually make your way to understanding, are you coming into an existing building? You're gonna add containers here. All those are great options, but it all is based around the site that you're obtaining and what you're taking the power generation from and bringing it to here. And at that point, that's when we come in and we start and we say, hey, all right, this is some of the areas that we could help maybe look at your electrical load. Like traditionally speaking, some guys come in and they say, hey, we've like literally on a piece of paper, like hand sketch something, and this is what we think we wanna do. And then we might look at it, and there's a coin phrase term that we use called value engineering. We'll look at it and be like, actually, you could reduce, there's this code right here that allows you to say, all right, you don't need to have this many panels, you can bring this into one, and then you can feed this, and there's all sorts of different things. And so I think to answer your question, like it's multi-layered. It's more of like we're helping them see things that they might not be seeing, but also at the same time, we're like teaching them the codes and regulations that say there are more cost-effective routes to do that. So, I mean, we're helping out like from a standpoint of let's look at your power generation consumption and then working it from there, and then we'll absolutely be mindful of like how are you cooling? Are you going to do immersion? Because like the conversation is the same. You're going to do immersion, you're going to do air, and we're going to take the loads of whatever you're using the cooling method, and then we're going to make sure that that's implemented in the electrical gear, and just making sure that like when you say I have 5 megawatts of power, it's like, well, there's still some amount of power that needs to be allocated for the lights in the building, the server room, all of the cooling equipment and all that stuff, and we certainly help make sure that it's sized appropriately. Yeah, flashlights help save, you know.
Johnny, sir, honestly, I've lost my train of thought on that question right there.
I was going to give him a compliment, actually. So one thing, like I'd known about Moonshot for a long time, and it wasn't until more recently that I engaged with him on a project. And something that's good about what he was saying there is, as a company, when you go buy switchgear and things like that, if you're going to a manufacturer like Eaton or whoever you want to go, or if you're talking to Chinese vendors and you're doing all this stuff, generally you're going to get into an area in which they build a certain thing, and that's what they build. There isn't a whole lot of customization or uniqueness to your project. Whereas dealing with Moonshot, one thing that was great is they actually had some gear in stock, which is absolutely absurd for different times in this market with 4,000 amp gear. But being able to take something they had in stock and be able to modify it to your needs. So maybe it was a 3,000 amp panel, but they happen to have some 4,000 amp breakers, can put in some different size busing and turn it into a 4,000 amp panel. And so that's where you get some uniqueness with companies like Moonshot versus very large vendors, or even like trying to go through the process of translating everything on WeChat and deal with Chinese and hope it's actually UL listed when it shows up, and then not having to do a field test on something to get it UL listed when it shows up. Yeah.
I refound my train of thought. Thank you. That was a great compliment for them. I have reasonable visibility into the space. I'm not a decision maker on what we buy on PDUs, but I go to all the events, and the perception is that Moonshot is a premium brand. you guys are killing it. You shared with me on the phone, like, you know, you've got some projects that are just awesome. But typically, premium also sounds expensive. And if you've ever met a Bitcoin miner, they are freaking cheap. Is it common that your customers are like on their second iteration, that they did it wrong the first time and now they're hiring an expert? We used horror stories in the past.
Totally.
Any horror stories, customer education journeys?
Totally. And that's a great question. I'd say we're fortunate enough to like have people that have trusted us, like Hut 8, CleanSpark, TeraWolf, some of the big guys in the space that are doing hundreds of megawatts. These guys are all publicly traded companies. So for them, they don't have an ability to make like cheap decisions. They have to make decisions that are going to protect a publicly traded company. And so we just were in a position that they saw us as a group that was trying to be legit in a space with that, when I say legit from like a build quality, following it by the book, to the T, electrical specifications to protect everybody the right way. We were just sitting there and they were like, yeah, absolutely. You guys say you can do it, let's do it. But I definitely get phone calls all the time. Actually, over the last 2 weeks, we've been getting a lot more just randomly through our website. And those folks are definitely right now just being like, oh, your PDU costs this? And I'm like, yeah, well, it's ETL listed, you know, like that's like ETL listing is like what Samsung has to do to allow your appliances to actually be plugged in nationwide and can be completely safe with insurance companies. Like it has to happen, right? And our PDUs are ETL listed. And they're also built in the United States too. So we don't do anything outsourced and then bring it in. Like everything is done here. All the parts and pieces might come from other countries, but we bring it all in-house. We make it here. It's not going on a boat. It's not going all the way over across the seas, like, and just being chugged along like all these people are like, all of us sitting in this room make really good livings, just trying to make a good product and bringing it to the industry and having a good product. Sorry, question?
I had a question. So
Yeah.
like, all these miners, like the Bitcoin miners themselves, they have like, they're running software and they're telling you how much current they're using
Sure.
and what the temperatures are.
Yeah.
Do you make systems that like tell how much power like the fans are, and can you?
Yeah, totally.
Can you tell like if the filter's getting clogged based on a power usage instead of
Yeah.
based on like a temperature usage?
Yeah, Curtis, go back one. Okay, so I'll give you guys a quick little education. This is a, whoa, almost fell off.
Yes.
All right, so this is like a 4,000 amp piece of medium voltage switchgear, okay? So this piece of equipment has these breakers right here. These breakers are about 800 amps a piece, okay? And each one of these breakers, oh, you don't have one of our other ones, but each one of these breakers feeds a panel that then feeds 8 PDUs. And each PDU is about 100 amps to 150 amps, depending on the size of the PDU, okay? And for every one piece of switchboard, we have something over here, which is called a control panel, okay? This control panel is then connected to the VFDs, which is called a variable frequency drive. That variable frequency drive is then connected to that fan, okay? A VFD, its job is to make sure that that fan slowly ramps up and slowly ramps down, okay? So this control piece is connected to a bunch of sensors throughout this massive building, okay? So there are sensors in all of the corners along the hot aisle and the cold aisles, and they're constantly detecting things from temperature, pressure, ampacity, all sorts of things like that. So yes, you can design something in that way. Is that a common thing to do? No. But if you do it, it allows you to keep an eye on these sites when you're a publicly traded company and you have 200 megawatts, well, 200 megawatt site here and there, and you're hosting and a 50 megawatt building goes down, like you want to spend that extra money to make sure that you're monitoring things in advance so that you can say, oh, I don't know why, can one of the operators go out there and check this? I don't know why there's an issue with, we're detecting a hot spot in this area over there. So that's one way you can do it with sensors in certain areas. They're really, really cheap and easy to install. These control panels are not very expensive to install. The expensive part's the install cost of it, but you can also do something in this main breaker right here. If you were to open that up, like, you know the breakers in your house, they're like that big. They're about 150 to 200 amps. A 4,000 amp breaker is like this big. It's huge. And there's something inside of there. It's a little module about that big, and it's called a power quality meter, okay? So you can stick a power quality meter inside of a main breaker, and you can actually run all of the ampacity calculations, figure out how much load has been pulled to the day, pulled to the actual breaker itself. So there's a lot of things you can do with meters nowadays. Just like I'd highly, like if I were to say, hey, what's the most cost-effective way to get data on your electrical system? It doesn't cost very much to add like a power meter inside of your electrical switchboard as opposed to like wiring up those and like having to spend the install cost with an electrician to put all those sensors everywhere. But yeah, it's definitely a much more common thing. To Shannon's point earlier, like these Bitcoin mining machines are not nearly the complexity of like an AI or like a traditional enterprise data center space, and like you can't not sell, like we sell to the AI and the enterprise data center space, and like it's so stark the difference between the specs that are required from those compared to the other. Not like in a bad way. I could have a whole nother conversation on the beauty of what the crypto industry has brought to like pushing the boundaries of what's required in a data center versus not, like overbuilding and overspeccing. But yeah, I'd just say like that's like the best way to get some data on your electrical power distribution system.
You own the place. I was going to wrap up, but my goodness, if the man wants to ask a question, I mean.
Yeah, so I'm just curious because these electrical devices are some of the most power dense. I mean, each one is pulling multiple horsepower. I don't think people realize that.
Totally.
Like each device is pulling 4 or 5 horsepower. And they're only getting more power dense. Is the takeaway from upgrading to high quality infrastructure like Moonshot provides, maybe I'm getting a little bit more efficiency in the power management and conversion because every watt of power that's not going to mining is being wasted on cooling or et cetera? Or is it some of the certifications like you just described or additional features like you just walked through? Features. Why would I spend the money for higher quality infrastructure?
Perfect question. I answer this question all the time at trade shows, okay? People come to me and they're like, your electrical gear is so expensive. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's UL listed, and there's a reason why it's UL listed. We have this long debate, and I'll go into further detail and talk about that. I'm like, okay, you heard me give me my speech, and I'm like, what is yours? What do you want to do with your site? Well, I want to sell it to somebody down the road, okay? Who's buying these sites? The Compasses, the Riots, the people like that. These are publicly traded companies. They're going to come to your site, and they're going to look at it and be like, well, you got to rip all this shit out, so we're going to devalue your site immediately. Why not do it right up front and actually create an asset for yourself and buy it correctly up front? That's just like the business mind of my answer. The other part is like, what happens, like I just explained to you, like my best way to answer that question, people is like, so what are you doing for insurance? And they're like, well, I got an insurance policy, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that's great. But I know for 100,000% fact that if an event actually happened right now, and that insurance group that you have will send a certified electrical person out to this site, and they're gonna go, that is not electrically like to code, this whole thing is gone. You are now stuck with the bill.
Hardest part of being sorry.
There's actually a really easy answer to this. We do a lot of operations for third parties also, right? Not just our clients and our farms. We actually operate for other people. And the people who cheap out on PDUs pay the same costs in a year or two of what they would have just paid for that first PDU that would have lasted them 5 to 10. So like, I no problem, finding very cost-effective PDUs that are, I don't know, a quarter of the price or a third to a quarter of the price of some of the higher quality PDU manufacturers out there. But even in just like our service center, we happen to have a surplus of these, non-name brand PDUs, and I think we've replaced all of them at this point within a year with higher quality PDUs. And this happens at everybody's farm. Like we go in and we end up taking over operations because they're struggling and PDUs are dying all the time. Sure enough, they're the same non-name brand PDUs. They just die, they burn out. We can fix them for a while, but eventually you just throw them away and have to buy a good one. So if you're gonna buy a PDU that you want it to last for, at least the life cycle of a miner, you're probably gonna spend, a bit more on it than sourcing it from every cheapest place possible.
Hopefully a quick question to build upon these other ones. in this day in time, what would you say would be the smallest amount of megawatts you need to become profitable? And what is the dollar amount to do that look like right now?
Oh, man.
Compared to 2017.
There's an interesting thing. It depends on where you live.
No. Okay. Hey. You saw me try to interrupt a couple times. I'm incredibly blessed that when I started with Compass almost 4 years ago, one of my earliest roles was to attend Bitcoin meetups. I'm a pleb. It's a passion of mine to attend Bitcoin meetups. Been around the world. You got to have good food, good programming, and then end on time, okay? Johnny, I hope you heard the same things I shared with Keith. I hope that this ends up being a meaningful business opportunity for you. I think it also matches very much what we spoke about, is that you bit off a little chunk about, let's talk about powering air filtration. You obviously are going to come back here and share more of your expertise.
Sure. Will
you please welcome or thank my guest? I'm going to say a couple closing things. Okay. Ryan Bursch, who's in back. Ryan is a colleague and coworker of mine. Ryan has personally helped me get this event up. I'm incredibly thankful to Wyatt and Tyler, you gentlemen who built this. Incredibly well done. Okay, good job, gentlemen. The best, yes. A good meetup requires a commitment to consistency. So with that, we will see you next month, okay? Jarrett Carpenter, I don't know if you guys know Jarrett. Jarrett, stand up. Jarrett leads the Compass Mining podcast. If you see Compass Mining tweeting something, it's him. Jarrett asked me at the beginning of this, he said, hey, Curtis, what can I do? I said, halfway through, bring me a beer. Okay. Jarrett had a few words to close us out.
Yeah, all I wanted to do, and hopefully, Zach, can you hear me? Awesome. Tomorrow we have a dirty coin screening. It's going to start at 7 o'clock, Bitcoin time. Hopefully at 7. The doors will open at 6. Food should be around 6:30. Please show up. I hope to see everyone here and bring a friend. How many of you are in Bitcoin mining, work professionally in the industry? Raise your hand. How many of you have seen this documentary? That's awesome. Well, everyone should see it, and especially the people who are already in the industry. For me, it helped out a lot, and I just wanted to give that shout out, that plug. Tomorrow, doors open at 6, 7 o'clock screening, and yes, thank you.
Housekeeping is that we want to be out of here by 9. We try to wrap up at 8:15 so that the side conversations can continue. Ladies and gentlemen, this was your first technical mining operations meetup.
Thank you, Curtis. This is great.